All right, you loyal listeners. Welcome to another episode of Agency Intelligence, where I'm giving you that real agency intelligence and not that beep that they try to make you believe out there. Okay, this is Cass, and I'm back, and it's been over a year. Some of my probably in the top 10 most listened podcasts are with this cat right here, Ryan Hanley, and people love it because we banter. We talk about a lot of good shit and shit you just never think about, right? And he gets me thinking, and I think about stuff, and then it just turns into a best hit. Oh, excuse me. There we go. Yep, Reza, you can pull that out. So, anyways, Ryan, welcome to the show again, brother.
Well, thanks, dude. I started self-editing. So I do like Biggie Smalls when he used to freestyle on public radio. He would curse, but he would just self-edit the word out. I started doing that because I realized that a lot of the content platforms now, if you have a curse word in your video, they'll downgrade you. Like I got, and this is just for anyone who's creating content out there, any of the agents that are creating content. I know a lot of you probably don't curse in your content, which is fine and good. I have a horrible East Coast Northern Irish mouth, and I love to curse. So I did a video the other day, and I was talking about this philosophy that I have, and actually one of my listeners created a little wooden figurine. GNF stands for Give No Fucks, right? And I was talking about what that philosophy means to me, but I said the F word in the video, and I put it up on Instagram. Now the text didn't have the curse in it, but it was in the video, and I got a content strike for that on Instagram.
Wow. God, I'm going to get a ton of that. And the other thing is that I hear on the podcast, they put an explicit. So if somebody sees that their kids are in the car, they're going to skip over that podcast because they can't, so I found that out and I was like, man, I shouldn't cuss. That would suck dick. I mean, that would suck real bad,
Yeah. It's funny. I think I've probably shared too much like Trump content on Instagram now because literally I have in the last 2 months, I've gotten 4 content strikes, and like I got a content strike for sharing a meme. It was like a Twitter image, and it was by Warren Buffett. It was like about compound interest or something. Like, I mean, literally as benign gets. But I guess it's been fact checked that Warren Buffett didn't actually say those exact words. He said something like it, and they content striked me for that. And I was like, I have definitely reached some bar of sharing like conservative or traditional value content on Instagram because I am fully in the radar now.
Wow. Dude, I'm telling you what, there's a lot of strikes that will come against people if they post something that didn't say something. Because how many times do you see that Mark Twain said something? And most of the time he didn't say it. Henry Ford said this, they didn't say it. And it's like, wow. So boy, that's tough. But then again, it's owned by Facebook. Those dang liberals, they're out there trying to take you down. So.
I think, my issue is not right wing, left wing. I think because right now, right, the left owns a lot of these platforms, and they're doing what anyone does when they're in power is you start to throttle speech. And I am not delusional that in some amount of time this will swing back to the right. And as the right did in the 70s and 80s, they'll start trying to curb speech their way. I'm not delusional that this is one side or the other. I think right now where the media and stuff is controlled by the left. So therefore they're the ones doing a lot of the throttling, but the right will do the same exact thing if they were the ones in power. It's just the way that it is.
Well, you said it very well there, and I hope everybody listens to that understands that. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, conservatives did control the airwaves and stuff like that. And I remember the Democrats and the liberals used to gripe about it, right? They'd be la, 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 la. But now that anybody, and honest, Hanley, I'm torn between that. I love people to be able to create content, but there's a lot of people who sit there and they watch something and they go, watch, I could recreate this to totally make it mean something else. And that's destructive. And I don't want to stop them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's very destructive. And to be honest with you, I think you're pretty much a loser. that you sit around and think about this stuff. And I think if you would actually put your brain to something constructive, you could be a loss ratio, right?
Yeah.
You could do something like that. Hanley, let's move right over to that. You shared a LinkedIn post. Give the loyal listeners a download on this. This is unbelievable.
Yeah. So if you're not following Curtis Goldberg on or Goldborough, sorry, on LinkedIn, you're doing yourself a disservice. He is hilarious. He's smart. He's crafted this whole personal brand and persona of like this loss ratio guy, and he wears this ridiculous he looks like we would have called him back when I was growing up. We would have called him a wankster, right? Like a white gangster.
Yes, we would.
He looks like a wankster. But it's awesome. Like I say that because that's the the kind of vibe that he's going for. He wears like this big gold chain. It says loss ratio on it, and like
great hat.
Sunglasses. But the creativity. So two things. He taught himself Premiere Pro, and and that's a video editing software. And if you look at over the course of the last 2 years, he creates these incredibly smart, cheeky memes that are common that you might see like common GIFs, but then he'll put text overlays like carrier, loss, agent, like different things are happening, and they're hilarious and funny. And one of the things that he's done over the last few years in conjunction with ITC is he creates these music videos. And his rollout this year, and each year they've gotten progressively more well produced, well thought out, like they become more intricate, more complex and dynamic. And he put a great video out this year. And then as a way to promote the video, and this is the brilliant part, and I think he shared this yesterday or today, I'm not exactly sure, but I saw it today, where he put like one of those CNN or MSNBC, whatever, like talking head things with his video in the middle. And then he's got this clip of Chris Cuomo making it sound like this video is super controversial. And then he's then injecting himself as the one being interviewed. It's so well done and so brilliant that like you can't not watch it, because you're like, what is he doing? Where is it? Because at first you see like Chris Cuomo's face and you immediately recognize like this is a talking head guy from TV, and you're like, what? Wait, but he's talking to Kurt. What's going on? And then you realize it's a gimmick, but at the same time it's like so well done and hilarious. And I'm like, this is the kind of content that I know a lot of you listening out there are like, look, I sell insurance for a living. I'm not going to become a full-time content editor. Also, I get that part, but like, you don't have to be that. You don't have to have it as produced as Curtis is doing now, and to be impactful. It's just being smart and thoughtful about the way you present yourself. And the other thing is, and I think this is a testament to Curtis's work and why I appreciate him so much, is that, this might be tough to do because I don't know where he has it housed, but if you were to go back a year, 2 years, and look at where he started to where he is today, he is just slowly ground out improvements on how he filmed, where he filmed, the number of shots he used, on and on and on. And then apply that to both his personal brand success, which has then brought his business a ton of success. So like, yes, this is time, it's investment, it's thought, etc. We're all very busy. I completely get that. However, the payoff for him has been extraordinary. And I think that little extra thought, that little extra consideration, and being willing to not be awesome for some videos. Another guy that's doing this really well in our space in a different capacity is Daryl Henry. Like just grinding it out, starting from zero, figuring out video. He started with kind of vertical videos where his head was only halfway up and it was a little echoey, to now he's got screen graph overlays and he's doing it in landscape format and it's more planned out. And like, you can see this natural progression over time of just putting something out, seeing how it does. You watch your own stuff, if it's good or not, right? And then you make little tweaks. Okay, next time I want to frame myself a little better. Or, hey, I need to get a light or something because I look a little faded, or my room's a little echoey. Maybe I can find a different room, or there's some other way to fix that problem. Like, I think in the content game, it's being willing to not be awesome at the beginning that really is that's a big barrier for people. Is they want like their first video they put out to be like Hollywood style production. It's never going to be that. like, unless you have the money to pay for a full-blown media crew, which isn't necessarily a bad idea. There are a lot of companies that'll come out to your office, spend 1 or 2 days with you, take 20 hours of video, and then give you back a whole portfolio of video products. Like, that is possible, not inexpensive. But if you're going to go the organic route, guys, just be willing to not be awesome at the beginning. Just don't look at Cass. Look at your first videos, my first videos that we ever did. Like today, we would barf at the thought of that. Mm-hmm. But that's only because you and I have been creating content for a decade plus now. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you can overcome those initial first few videos you put out and then really think about what you're doing and iterate on it, you will get to a place where you'll wake up, you'll look around, there'll be people coming to you, there'll be opportunities on the table, partnerships with people in your community, opportunities to speak to business leaders in your community, all these advantages that come from putting your ideas out into the world.
So Hanley, one of the things I learned from you, and I heard this actually a couple of weeks ago, and a guy said this and I thought of you, and it has to do exactly what we're talking about. A guy said something very simple. He said, innovation is not what makes somebody successful. It's imitation. And when he was talking about it, he said, if Starbucks works really well in America and no other place in the world has Starbucks, you just know that you could take Starbucks there and it's going to work probably, right? On a simple form. You made the 100 videos and you told people for years to make the 100 videos and no one wanted to do it because we had this thought of, well, Hanley already did it. Now, Mike Crowley actually was the first one that I knew, to give props to him, that actually did it. I'm telling you right now, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I will produce a video just like Chris did, but I won't go to LinkedIn. I'm going to steer it towards my local community, which has never seen this and is going to absolutely be blown away. And if you think for 1 minute, I'm going to worry about the fact that Chris did it, no. When I make it, I'm going to send it to him and say, thank you very much for this. But putting it in your local community, who in my community has seen that? 0 people, right? And I just think I love when I see that, because innovation, it's more imitation that really can drive you a lot of places. Seeing what you've done over the last 10 years drives people to imitate part of it and put their own stamp on it. Would you agree with that?
100%. There are very few original ideas in the world. I mean,
true.
If you read, like, I have I don't know if I heard this from one of the people, like one of my mentors or on a podcast or whatever, but actually it wasn't. It was Naval Ravikant. I heard him on a podcast. He's a entrepreneur guy, very, very smart. And he said, if you only read dead authors, you'd know everything you need to know. And his point was, there are very few concepts that come out in your modern times that aren't derivatives of an original idea from someone else. Mm-hmm. And that by going to the point of truth, you oftentimes are able to, you're able to create your own original take on the original idea. And that's all most modern authors are doing. That's all most modern authors have done through history, right? Like, you know, Carl Jung is a derivative of Freud. You know, Freud had a lot of original thoughts, but his stuff came from, you know, teachings even earlier. And the idea is that we're all just kind of slightly iterating off of those who came before us. We can't help it. And to your point, don't fight it. Figure out, find the people that, and it could be like, so much of what I did early in my career and even today is I consume a ton of content. One, I'm just interested in a lot of different things, but 2, I'm always listening for how they deliver something, their nuance. I take that and I go, okay, for me, in my way, can I use this, but through my filter, right? And some of it works, some of it doesn't work, some of it doesn't sound like me, some of it does. The stuff that works, I keep. The stuff that doesn't, I throw out, and I keep moving forward. So I haven't had a tremendous number of original ideas. I've just taken ideas that I've heard, mashed them together, a lot of times with insurance, and come out with something that is original to insurance, but isn't necessarily an original idea in and of itself. And there's one other point that you made in there that I'd like to touch on. I think a lot of people taking your Starbucks idea. So if you were in the coffee, let's say you wanted to start a coffee shop, right? And you look at your town, you're like, oh, you know, I wanted to start this high end, you know, roasted, coffee shop, but geez, we already have a Starbucks. That's the wrong way to think about it, right? If there's a Starbucks in your town, that means there are people willing to pay $3.50 for shitty coffee, right? So that means there are people, there's a marketplace for what you love. Well-roasted, gourmet, kind of unique, cheeky, pulled from, maybe it's organic, maybe it's we focus on Latin America, maybe it's we focus only on US, whatever your shtick is. If there's a Starbucks in your community, it means there is a market for that type of business. Okay, now apply that to something like insurance. If there is, say, a State Farm office in your town and you sell personal lines, okay? The idea is not to say, you're not going to say, well, I'm not going to sell personal lines because there's a State Farm, right? What that means is there's an opportunity to sell personal insurance to people who believe in a strong brand, because people buy from State Farm for the most part because of the strong brand. I don't want to knock their product. I think their personal line product is perfectly fine. Yeah, but what they're buying, what they want to believe in, is that strong brand that State Farm has. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that if you're willing to build a strong brand around your agency, you can sell a ton of personal lines. There are people in your community who have said, I want to do business with a company with a strong brand. That's why I do business with State Farm, right? So, okay. So now there's a market for that. And I think that we shouldn't shy away from the fact that there's already somebody doing that. Well, that if there's already somebody doing it, it means they've proven the market exists, assuming they're doing well, and that there's room for another player in that market, which could be you. I see, and I I see this in commercial lines a lot. Someone will say, well, there's already a Brown and Brown office in my town that's going after all the mid-market contractors, so I don't know that I really want to play in that space. If there's a Brown and Brown office in your market, that means Brown and Brown, they're not dummies. They've decided that there's enough business in your marketplace to have an office there. That means there's a ton of really good middle market business. And if anything, it's a big flashing green light to push into that market and see if you can't play with them. So, I think that's a different and better way to think about competition.
Innovation versus imitation. I thought that was really, really good. All right, let's switch over to one of the things that we were talking about. Their ITC, Insurance InsurTech Connect. They put on a big, they're trying to focus actually on agents rather than just a big orgy of carriers and in tech and investors, right? They actually said, you know what, let's bring agents in. I'd like to talk about, I know you kind of led the effort there to really get people there. Tell me about this event and how it was good.
Yeah. So they reached out to me in January and said, so they're under new ownership. If people didn't know that, I think a year and a half ago,
Endeavor, I believe.
What?
Isn't it Endeavor? Is the name of their company?
A PE company came in and bought them and put a professional event management team in place. I think that Jay Weintraub, Caribou, the team at the original team at ITC did a phenomenal job, but their focus was always more on, like you said, investors, the technology companies, and carriers. And mostly because, and I've talked with those guys, I know Jay fairly well. It was always just, that was their natural market, right? They didn't know how to break into agents. And frankly, agents and brokers is a tough market to break into if you aren't an agent or broker. Tough market to break into. Okay. So they built this event in Vegas over the last 9 years or so that does close to 10,000 people a year without agents and brokers. Yeah. And when the new management team got in, they didn't have enough time last year to put a event in place. But coming into the year that we just had, they decided, hey, we have this big gaping hole of, we don't actually have the people, boots on the ground, that are actually selling this product here. And I think, the big lesson we learned from the 2016, 2017 kind of InsurTech revolution is that agent disintermediation is not a winning strategy. It's agent enhancement. So most of the technology that you see at all these conferences is either, and I walk through the vending hall, the main vending hall, not just the agent event vending hall. And it's all either agent enhancement, carrier enhancement, or platform enhancement, like data type stuff. You don't see Like, when I went there in 2019, everything was, we're going to disintermediate. We're going to take over this market. And you don't see any of those companies anymore. So
you don't hear that word disrupt anymore.
Yeah. Because we weathered the storm. We took to the walls and we fought back the barbarians. You know what I mean? These MIT dicks that thought they could do a 201 level class regression analysis and tell us that after 440 years, we didn't know what we were doing. And the big mistake that they all made was that insurance isn't broken. It could be iterated on, it could be improved, it could be innovated for sure. I think you talk about that constantly, so do I, but it's not broken. It's not broken. Everyone who has insurance that got hit by these last 2 hurricanes, they're going to get paid, right? The unfortunate part is, especially for Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, is that a lot of those people didn't have flood insurance and they're going to pay, unfortunately, they're going to pay a price for that. Hopefully, the federal government does the right thing and helps those people out. But anyone who did is going to get paid. Insurance isn't broken. So
I agree.
So that being said, they came to me and asked me to be the chairman of the board for the event. And so I spent time with them, spent basically the year helping them plan it out. I was very, very impressed, happy, appreciative of the fact that they were open to suggestion in terms of content. These are often panel after panel after panel after panel, which makes us all want to swallow a gun. And we know that format doesn't work in terms of audience value. It's value to the people paying to be on stage, but not value to the audience. So my very first thing I said is I'm unwilling to do anything more than 1 panel in the morning, 1 panel at night, or in the afternoon. They accepted that. I also had this idea of doing what I called mic drop sessions, 15-minute main stage, come in, you get one idea, blast it out, hit it hard, get off the stage, next person, right? Bam, bam, idea. They were open to that. So I was very happy with that.
Appreciate the invite.
What?
Appreciate the invite. Appreciate
you
the
did
invite.
Get an invite. You declined.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I was really
but you're first on the list next year if you want to be there. Trust me.
Yeah, I get it.
The idea.
I was just throwing jabs, just joking, Hanley.
But
come on.
Some of those jabs hurt me.
Okay,
they hurt
all
my
right,
heart.
that's fair. That's fair, especially when it comes from me. Same thing when you come from me.
You're always on my mind. Trust me.
It's an arrow straight to me.
Wait, let me just take that knife out of my back. No. So 461 agents.
The mic drops.
Yeah, that was very cool. We had Marcus Ogden come in as an outside the industry speaker talk, which they were open to, which was great.
I thought that was good.
Yeah. So it was, it was not a perfect event, but I think it went very well for a first year. There's tons of places to improve. But the idea is, I think the way they want to take this event is not such a heavy focus just on tech, right? Tech is always important. But I think that the event as a whole, and specifically the Asian event they're trying to build, by purely and only focusing on tech, I think it's not what they want it to be, which is this Super Bowl of events. Like they want to get to like 15 plus thousand people, and to get there, you need agents to come. Okay, so the idea is like, could it be a Switzerland of events? So you have, because our industry is so fiefdom driven, right? Like I'm part of this aggregator, so I can't go to this event over here, or I'm PIA of this state, so I can't go to a big I event. And can we break down those fiefdoms and say for 3 days, everyone can come here, mix, mash, learn from each other, different parts of the country, all different parts of backgrounds, ideology in terms of how the business should be run, business should be done. And I thought it was a good first pass for that.
I think all the loyal listeners are right now saying you can tell that this is Cass's friend. Switzerland is something I predicted. I really tried to pull that same thing when I do indie tech. I'm tired of everybody having an ego.
I thought indie tech was great. I thought indie tech was great.
But I'm tired of people having an ego. And look, it's cool to sit here and talk about these events, like how great they are and stuff. But also we have to pull back the curtain and realize me running one, you running one, there's a lot to be said. I will tell you this. One of the things that I've really realized about this, and I think that this is an ITC, I think they could kill it like this, but location. Every time I have an event in Las Vegas, I have my lowest attendance. agents, maybe not investors, maybe not carriers, agents are not happy to go to Vegas. I don't know what it is. I thought, God, this will be great. I've had 3 there and they've always been my lowest attendance. It's just the weirdest thing.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive. And also the other thing is when a lot of the agents, when they come, they don't come to class or anything because they're with their wives or something on the floor out there. So I'm really good that they got someone like you involved there because it needs somebody like you who's going to say, hey, this is something that you should get behind, right? And so that was really good. That was really good. So do you know when roughly it is next year?
Middle of October again, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It's always around the second or third week of October.
And one of the reasons I had to deny it was the last week of September was my Indie Tech, and I was so swamped in that, and I'm traveling a lot and doing stuff. And that's the reason why I've also moved Indie Tech to January in 2026, not 2025, because it's just, you know how it is. There are so many damn events going on in the spring, in the fall, and in the spring, you kind of get dominated by Hawksoft and Vertifor and some of the larger networks. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'll tell you this, and I've said this to my loyal listeners, they know this, Hanley, I think IAOA, which had a great event, I believe, and I can see it, once they left January and went into the fall, immediate started downticking people. And it wasn't the event. It wasn't the event at all. It's just, hey, I got to go apply to Applied, and then 2 weeks later, I'm supposed to go to IAOA. And that's something I didn't learn until I brought up Indie Tech then. I usually do brain share in the spring, but even that, I got to keep it at 100 people because of that. Now, in 2026, we're going to bring brain share and we're going to bring Indie Tech together because this year we had the Insurance Mavericks and then Indie Tech, and they had a huge successful time. And so I thought, okay, if they can do that, we can do that with brain share. And then the only problem with, I remember Nicholas telling me, when you do it in January, you're stuck in the South. You've got to go somewhere in the South. You can't go anywhere else in America because no one wants to go to Chicago in January, right? I mean, you just don't want to do
flights,
that.
flight
that
issues.
doesn't
If
sound
it snows
fun.
and people can't get in.
Yeah,
and,
just
it's
like going
to
somewhere in New York or Maine. It's like, come on, man, it's cold as shit, So that's good. That's good. That's good. Hanley, I'm really proud of you in doing that. I think you got some great people up there. I really do. And I hope it's successful. When they called me, I said the same thing to them. Hey, if it's about independent agents, I'm going to do my best to support it because we can't draw that line. It's got to be Switzerland. Half the people may not like me. I may not like half the people, but those aren't the people I'm there for, right? I'm there for the other half. And I just think that it's very, very, I was happy when I saw that you were going to lead that. So I think that's kudos to you inside that.
And I'll say this just before we move on.
Yeah.
Just this is complete personal, but I always felt like I had unfinished business after Elevate 2018. Like Elevate 2018, we had 827 people at. Thought it was a very successful event, and not getting now. God works in mysterious ways, right? I
definitely
get asked to leave trustedchoice.com. I don't get to be part of 2019, which I spent so much time planning. Sid and the team did a great job, but then COVID happens and events kind of get blown up. So probably not great to be in the event business, or at least a large event business. If you're not a large event company and can sustain the hit in that time period. So, obviously I'm happy that my life worked out the way it did. I got to start Rogue, but I always felt like I had unfinished business, and, being back in the event game. And that, like, for me, the narrative of the event, the actual performance that happens on stage, how transitions happen, how like things are I could do that all day long. Like I absolutely love it. 'Cause to me, I think so many of the people, and you do a great job at this with Indie Tech and you do events great. So I think you can understand, but there's so many events out there where it just feels like they took some names, threw them on a wall, whatever sticks. They put them on a list and you just go, and there's not really a rhyme or reason to it. You kind of feel like one speaker to the next doesn't make a lot of sense. You're constantly having to switch brain functions. And what I've always tried to do as best as possible, and I think we did okay with that this year at ITC Agents. I signed on to be part of the event for 3 years. So they're giving it a 3-year try.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm going to be chairing the board for 3 years. So 2025 and 2026 at a minimum. But I just think that when an event planner, when you can tell an event planner has spent real time thinking through the path that you want to take the attendees on, and that the narrative design of the event, like how one speaker builds off the next, how you're maybe you're starting with speakers that are high level. Like we had Marcus Ogden, and Marcus Ogden's a former NFL player. He's got this amazing story where like 6 years in the NFL, ego gets huge, becomes a kind of, mess of a life, loses all his money, loses his career, starts this construction company, builds it up to 8 figures in revenue. Same exact thing happens again, destroys his life. He's got all this money. And then he starts rebuilding and has now, in the last 12 years, rebuilt his life. He's got his, he's doing incredibly well. He's brilliant, smart, great guy. But he kind of sets the tone at a high level. And then, we finish with the most deep dive, nerdy ass, ones and zeros AI talk that you've ever heard. And the idea of the narrative was taking people, getting close, if we start at 30,000 feet, and can we bring them down to where at the end of the day, they feel like they're standing with 2 feet on the ground with a firm understanding of what these technologies are that they're being presented out on the showcase floor and ideas and stuff to use. And like, man, it just felt good to be thinking about performance in that way again. And it felt like I had a chance to make good on some of the promises that I made in 2017 and 2018 that I never really got to fully deliver on.
You're so right. Hanley, what I've decided in life, and I think you're very much like me in this regards, we just like building shit, right? Mm-hmm. We love building things for other people and that they see value, but it's like, I just know they don't have the guts, the cojones, the whatever it could be, the time, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. They just don't know how to do it. They don't want to put their ego. They don't want their ego to be hurt. I just really, truly get off on doing that. I really, truly do. Hanley, switching gears here. How has this industry changed as far as the agents and how we see marketing and process and procedure and technology since you and I were kicking it in 2010, 2015, how would you say that this industry has changed mentally, physically? How would you say?
Yeah, I think if you were to take us out of 2010 and plop us into 2024 without the context of those 14 years, you wouldn't even recognize it. I wish that we moved faster than we do. However, we are moving forward. We're making incredible progress. I think just from the standpoint of diversity of thought and diversity of background, and just the way people look. I mean, just at face value, we have people from all over the spectrum of males, females, every race.
Minorities have come up big time.
Yeah. Not that we need more liberals in our industry, but certainly there's more thought and across the board. And I think in general, that's an incredibly positive thing, because what it does, and I think the regulated, structured nature of the product we sell, I think it attracts a certain type of brain. I think it does, right? So I think part of the conservative nature of our industry, not just politically, but just societally, et cetera, is just because of the conservative nature of the product that we sell. I think it just attracts that type of person.
Fair.
However, when you get too much homogeny, you get what we had, the stagnation in marketing and technology development that we had. We kind of missed the late 90s, kind of 2000 to 2010 technology wave.
True.
Because it's such a conservative industry. And I think when the marketplace kind of opened up, some people started to retire, which opened gaps for new people to start new agencies, to branch off and create there's a lot of agencies that are starting to create sub brands for specific niches they go after and different things like that. They're going out and finding programs that they can write, like Aaron Farmer and what he's done with his flood program in California, and kind of branching off from the main part of his agency to create this incredible program business that he does. Like these kinds of things are things that wouldn't necessarily even have been considered in 2010. We would have looked at them as, frivolous or risks. And today, it's very commonplace. And when you dig into how people are approaching this business, not just from a marketing standpoint, from just how they structure their business, how they lead their teams, the cultures they're creating.
True.
It used to just be a top-down authoritative culture in many agencies. And today there's so many conversations with amazing leaders about how they build these wonderful, cultures of camaraderie, and all of that just leads to progress. So I'm very proud of our industry for the strides we've made. I think COVID was very challenging, but coming out the backside of it, I feel like it's nothing but positive momentum. There's so many challenges in our industry with the hard market, with carriers having to deal with, real life issues with underwriting, with reinsurance. I mean, these are real issues that we have to deal with. But I think that if we can always keep one foot in that conservative bucket, not conservative necessarily in a political standpoint, but conservative in so much as our product is the most important product sold in the world, and keep one foot in the kind of forward leaning, what can technology do? What can culture do? What can new, different, young voices do? I think that's how we move forward. And I'm very proud of kind of the balance that we're starting to find.
Hanley, not going out too far, but just I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I believe the last 2 years, well, I don't believe, in the last 2.5, 3 years, we've seen growth at the Insurance Alliance between 34 to 39%, right? That is not true. We've actually seen anywhere between 14 to 17% true new business growth. The other is rate increase. Yep. I think for the last 2 years, two things have happened. Agents have got lackadaisical on their renewal process, because when your customer would call in and say, hey, I don't like this, we would basically, here's our renewal practice. Hey, we don't have anything better. I just, if you have to go somewhere else, I feel sorry for, I'm sorry. Very rarely did they leave because no one else wanted them, especially if they had an accident or something. So we became very relaxed on our renewal process. At the same time, when you're growing 30, 40%, whether that's rate increases or organic, you start to say, I don't necessarily need producers. I talked to an agent. He's got a $1.3 million revenue business. In 2022, his revenue was $700,000. He doesn't have producers. That's just straight rate increase, right? So what's happened is we've started to get lackadaisical on what we prevented business from going out. And we haven't invested in trying to get more business in. Just made sense, right? Markets weren't opening up. It's hard to make money on a producer if you were brand new. I believe these next 2 years, I think it's been pushed back a little bit because of the hurricanes. But I want to get your thought on this. And I'm speaking to you loyal listeners. I've never been more serious about something in the last 4 to 5 years. I think 2025, 2026, and part of 2027 is going to decimate agencies. You're really going to see, I almost would say that this is part of that great separator that I never even saw. And I think that whenever I've talked to them, I talked to the Farmers CEO of Farmers Insurance 2 weeks ago. I talked to Liberty Mutual's number 3 person about a week ago. They're all saying the same thing. They're all applying right now for rate reductions inside of the states right now. It's going to take a while because now we've got other things that are affecting it. These markets are going to open up. And when they do, this is for me and my agency too, 75%, 80% of my clients are going to shop in the next year or two, especially when their buddy is saying, hey, I'm used to pay $5,000 for my homeowners and now I've got it for $3,500, which is still way more than the $2,500 they were getting before all of this inflation. So I think we are going to see I have told Travis, my business partner, I said, Travis, 25, 26, 27 is the years of acquisition. There's going to be agencies that didn't invest in technology when they should have. They spent it on the golf course or brand new cars. We have invested in our producers. We have invested in our AZ and our remarketing pipelines and workflow over and over again. And I believe we are set to really, really kick butt. And I'm scared for the rest of the industry. Because I know how many people have, I don't need that. I don't need that. Here I am with this thought. Kelly Donahue Pirro is going around right now to every group that will listen to her. She's saying the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's going to be crazy. I want to hear your thoughts on that. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a few different thoughts on that. I think you're 100% right. I disagree. I don't disagree with anything that you said. I'm not worried about the industry. I would be worried for individual agencies.
Yes.
I also believe that in kind of a pure capitalist environment, and if you are unwilling to look out into the future and think about your business as a business and not think about your business as an agency owner, then maybe you deserve to have some of your business ripped away from you. And the agencies, look, like hard markets are when agencies position not so. There's a common, there's a if you talk to people who've lived through hard markets before, there is a large portion of the population of our industry that has no idea what a hard market is. This is their first time, right? They're feeling it. They're doing it now, but this is the first one they've ever felt. I think you as well, I'm going to use the word blessed, but when I started my career was the last time we had a hard market, 2005. We were coming out of the last hard market, and I lived through the transition from a hard market to a soft market. Now, thankfully, I was in an agency that was well positioned from a branding perspective to take advantage of it. I think during hard markets, you survive, but if you're smart, you are doing the things to position yourself for when. So if you've built an incredible brand, if you've built a well-run sales funnel, if you have a team that has SOPs in place to properly handle and move through renewals in a way that makes tactical and strategic sense, and you're filling the top of the funnel today, right? When the prices start to come down, all that's going to happen is you're going to start to vacuum cleaner up. You're going to start to hoover all that business in, and the agencies that have been sitting back on their increased premiums and, like you said, buying cars, buying secondhand. Now, granted, all those things are great. This is America. You can do whatever you freaking want. Like, go get it. Like, I'm not against that. But when your revenue starts to come down because rates start to come down and you don't have a sales process in place, you don't have a lead generation process in place, you don't have a solid renewal process in place, guys, you deserve to have your business taken from you. I'm not sorry. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, to Jason Cass's podcast, and you are not thinking about the future, you deserve to have your business taken from you. Now, I think most of you listening to this are probably not in that camp, because you wouldn't be listening to a show like this if you weren't the type of person who liked to think in the future, who wanted new ideas, who wanted to have their brain stretched. So we're probably preaching to the choir a little bit, but to me, I do not look on those who are unprepared and feel guilty or feel bad for them. Like, you live in freaking America and you run an insurance agency. You have the world by the balls. Like, if you decide not to take that advantage, then that's on you. That's your problem. Now, that being said, it's not too late, right? And what that means is,
good call there.
Start doing what we started this podcast on. Start creating some content. That doesn't mean you have to be some big content producer. It could be a 3-page PDF that you send to potential referral partners. It could be very targeted billboards. It could be something to get your brand out in front, so that when, as you said, now again, I think some of this has to do with who becomes president. So, and this is not political. I actually think that if insurance agents wanted to make more money, they would vote for Kamala, because I think that she's going to continue to blow the economy up, probably send us into a few more wars. Our inflation is going to go through the roof again. I don't think she has any ability to not control that, because she's not incentivized not to. I think that Trump, on the other hand, I don't think he will curb inflation, though I do think he will slow it. I think that we're on a train right now that has unfortunately lost its brakes. I do think that he will have a throttling effect on inflation a little bit, which is ultimately not as good for us from a premium perspective. The beauty of our industry is that we're inflation protected, right? Our insurance rates might lag inflation just because of rate filings, et cetera. But ultimately, we're an inflation protected business. When inflation goes up and things cost more, premiums go up. When things cost less, premiums come down. So I think
Very
that
well
if
said.
you actually wanted to just purely make more money, you would vote for her. I think if you want what's best for the world, you'd vote for Trump. But the other side of that is there is either highly inexpensive or free access to everything that you could possibly want to know to put your business in place to win in a softening market, as you described, right? Dude, come to Cass's event. Go follow, if you're looking for AI shit, go follow CJ. If you're looking for how to do your renewal, follow Kelly Donahoe Puro. If you're looking for sales stuff, shit, I have a course that's going to be very inexpensive. It's going to be a couple $100 that teaches the one call close inbound sales process that we had at Rogue, right? Like there are these, for a couple $100, there are resources all over the internet to help insurance agents properly position themselves in whatever places they need. And if you can't find a couple $100 to help position your agency better, you have much larger problems than what's going to happen to your business. Like you're already in a tough spot. I firmly believe everyone has the capital to make these investments. And if you focus on them, pick one, right? If you're like, all three are screwed, I'm in trouble in all three. Okay, no problem. Which one could have the greatest impact? I'd say, to your point, Cass, go find someone who can help you with the renewal process first. If I had to pick one of those three, I'd make sure my renewal process was fixed first. Then I'd figure out my sales pipeline. Then I'd figure out how to go get leads in that order. And if you're in trouble, start working on those things and make just tiny little incremental changes that can help you position yourself. So when rates come down, you're just sitting there collecting all the business. Because as soon as they do, every insured's antenna is going to go up and they're all going to start looking for someone who can help them. And if you're there and you have the process in place, you will make bank. Hard markets are where insurance agencies position themselves to crush coming out. Crush. If you're positioned well in this hard market, you may not be crushing it from a new business acquisition standpoint during the hard market, but if you're properly positioning yourself, as soon as rates start coming down, that is like a rubber band that snaps forward, and bam, that's where you see real growth from certain agencies.
Love it, man. Closing up, thank you very much for coming on here. I try to keep my podcast between 20 to 25 minutes long, and I was going to say it at the beginning, but I forgot. I mean, Hanley and I have never done one under 40, 45 minutes, and we're a little bit over that. So I do appreciate everybody who has come in, and, imitation's important. I wrote it down. I think it's one of the best things that you said and the whole podcast, and it's something that you quoted somebody else. If you do nothing but read dead authors, you'll know everything you need to know. I have never been able to explain to people how important it is that they read. And there is nothing better said than that right there. I really, truly do. I appreciate you as a friend, man. Thank you very much for coming on.
Dude, I appreciate the opportunity. My podcast doesn't focus on insurance really that much anymore. I just have mostly to your point. I'll tell you. So a lot of people ask me, and just to close up, I'll close up with this thought. A lot of people ask me, why did you transition your podcast away from insurance? Because at the initial jump was it actually hurt my downloads and stuff. And the reason was not that I don't want to talk about insurance. I love talking about insurance. I love coming on and talking to you. Once a month, I do a kind of stand-in set with Bradley and Scott just to talk. I try to go on different shows as much as I can because I love this industry. I'm the CMO of an AI company in the industry, right? I'm fully back in and I love it. The reason I took the podcast out was so that I could, me personally, selfishly, I could have a platform to interview people outside of our space so that I could start to find new ideas that aren't in the space today, right? New thoughts on leadership, new thoughts on culture, new thoughts on marketing, sales, whatever, technology, right? I wanted to start to say, okay, what else is out in the world? And can I pull this back in and reframe it through an insurance context? And the other piece was I wanted to give my audience who's interested in that kind of content, right, that voice. Now, we're not talking about insurance every day. I'm not reframing everything into insurance, but I'm trying to put people in front of that audience to say it has tremendous value to step outside of what is expected of an insurance agency, what's expected of a marketing agency, what's expected of an AI technology company, what's expected of a HR consulting company, right? Like what are their strategies? How do they define problems? How do they build culture? And then can we reframe those things into our own business and find competitive advantages that our peers who only think through the frame of what an independent insurance agency owner does, and find ways to grow our business that no one else sees? And I couldn't stress enough, like you said, reading, listening to podcasts outside the space. The books that are in the background of my video, those are not just to have like a whatever cheeky looking background. Those are reminders to me every day to sit down and read, right? I have to stare in every Zoom call and every podcast I do in the books behind me. And it's a reminder that, hey, reading those books is how you developed the ideas that are the core aspects of who you are, right? Mm-hmm. One of those books is the Bible. One of those books is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Another one of those books is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Those three books set the core construct of kind of my value structure, and finding more books of that ilk only helps continue to refine my perspective on the world. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we over-index on busy in exchange for our own personal development.
You always bring up new words, vocabulary words. Ilk. That was a new one there. I like that. You threw that one out there. I like that a lot. No, man, thank you very much. Hey, real quick, where do they find your podcast?
Just Google Ryan Hanley Show. You'll find us. We're on all the platforms, YouTube, Spotify, all the things.
And then the company you became CMO of?
Linqura. You can go to Linqura.ai, commercial insurance, Copilot. We are working to become basically the Intel Inside for AI in the insurance industry. So I envision a day where every tool you use, you'll never know it, but the AI they're using is powered by Linqura's platform. It's a pretty unique company. It's very interesting. And to be honest with you, I'm excited to help in some capacity bring AI to our space, because I think most of the players today are over-indexing on functionality, and they're not focused on the security and privacy concerns that are so important to our industry. And that's Linqura has already solved that problem. And that to me makes them someone, worth kind of getting their message out into the world. So happy to be part of the team.
I'm going to close up quick because this has been a long podcast, but I think you got so much out of it. There's really nothing that I can say. But here's the thing I always like to say. You know what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass and Ryan Hanley, and we're out.